Yo, YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Kari.HQ, back again with another video for y'all. You know, I got some heat just like always, and today I'm gonna be discussing a very interesting topic. Before we get into it, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like this video right now, hit the like, and yeah, hit me up on Instagram at Kari.HQ if you got any questions about anything we talk about today. So let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. So I'm gonna be talking to you guys about what it's like being an expat here in Colombia, and if the expat lifestyle is worth it. You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of people are in their home country vetting the idea of living overseas in a foreign country. I mean, I was doing that at one point and I had to make that decision. So I just want to give you guys some information about what it's like to be an expat and to live overseas for an extended amount of time. And specifically, I'm gonna go into all the items I'm gonna talk about. I got a list of items I'm gonna cover, and I'm gonna talk about if it's a plus, even, like not a plus or a negative, or a negative in Colombia. So plus, even, or negative on each of these items that I'm gonna cover in regards to Colombia. But you could apply this to any country that you're gonna move to and do your research and find out what it would be like on all of these different topics I'm gonna talk about in the country that you're looking at living at, okay? So let's get into it. I just wanna start off with a quick statement. So living overseas can be an incredible experience, right? But it also comes with its own set of challenges, for sure. Here's a list that I'm gonna give you of the major complaints that expats often encounter when living in foreign countries. So, the first one on the list that we're gonna talk about is the language barrier. So, a language barrier, you know, it could be difficult communicating in the local language, and that can lead to misunderstandings, isolation, and frustration. So, how does Colombia stack up on the language barrier? I would say the language barrier in Colombia and most major cities, it's strong. You know, if you don't speak Spanish, it's gonna be tough navigating that one. But the good thing about Colombia is the Spanish language. We grew up in America, you know, hearing a little bit of Spanish here and there, especially depending on the region of the United States that you're from. You might hear more Spanish, and you might be a little bit more accustomed to Spanish. But I would say Spanish on the difficulty level to learn is not super difficult. And Medellin is a place where a lot of people speak English, because a lot of people, you know, are in the tourism industry, and tourism is quite strong here. So for Colombia, I'm gonna give this one a even, okay? Because again, there's a lot of people here that speak English. There's a lot of schools where you can learn Spanish, and the Spanish language, I think, is not super difficult to learn if you put in the time and the work, versus, let's say, Portuguese or like Japanese or something like that. I think you have a bigger challenge trying to learn those languages, and there's probably less schools in some of those major cities to learn those languages. But because Medellin is so big on tourism, you know, there's a lot of resources for you to learn Spanish, and a lot of people will help you out if you don't speak Spanish here. So for Colombia, it's gonna be a even. All right, so the second item that I'm gonna cover on this list is the cultural differences. So about cultural differences, adapting to new cultural norms, practices, and social etiquette can be challenging and sometimes lead to feelings of alienation or discomfort. So I would say that cultural differences here. What? I'm just recording. All right. Huh? Yeah. I'm making a video, bro. I'm filming. Okay, just give me a minute. Yeah. Look at this. So, you know, cultural differences, man. Colombia, I would say that's got to be a negative for me, the cultural differences in Colombia are really big, you know. As you can see there, someone's interrupting me. I'm trying to film a video. He wants to know what the video is about. So that's just one example, but man, I could pull out a million of those examples in Colombia. From, you know, the gringo exploitation that Colombians like to do, where they, you know, where they exploit gringos for their money and stuff like that. You might find it challenging dating here because, you know, the whole dating, the way they date here is a little bit off kilter from the American way and the way many Western countries do it. And I don't know, there's just a lot of cultural differences here in Colombia. You know, it's not a culture where it's like Japan, where everyone's very respectful of you. People can be very rude here. People can be very dishonest here. People can be, you know, I don't know what the word is, but it's like they don't necessarily have a lot of empathy. And especially if you're American or gringo per se, they really can treat you bad here at times. I've talked about this in some of my other videos, so that shouldn't be a surprise. So for cultural differences, I'm gonna give Colombia a negative. So it's not good here as far as cultural differences are, because there's a lot of them. They're quite complex and they're in the negative way for the most part. Back in the day, I would say Colombians were a lot more welcoming to gringos and foreigners, but nowadays not so much. So on to the next item on the list. That's going to be bureaucratic hurdles. So navigating local bureaucracy for things like visas, work permits, and residency paperwork. It can be quite complex and time consuming in any country. And for Colombia, that's going to be a negative as well. The Colombian bureaucracy systems are horrible. Some of the worst probably in the world, I would say, because you could be trying to do a visa process or a residency process, or even getting an apartment or getting a bank account. All these things can be incredibly complex and time consuming. For example, if you go to the bank here on a busy day, you could end up waiting 2 to 3 hours just to speak with someone. If you're lucky and you go to a location that's not super busy, you could get in and out, you know, within 30 minutes or an hour. It just depends on that day and the rush of people. If you go on payday, forget about it. So yeah, bureaucracy hurdles, they're quite challenging in Colombia. And again, these are things that you should consider for any country that you're moving to. I'm just giving you my take on them in Colombia because that's where I've been living. So, you know, be aware of the bureaucratic hurdles that you're gonna have to jump through in whatever country that you're thinking about moving to. All right, so next up, the next item that we're gonna cover is the healthcare system. So with the healthcare system, differences in healthcare quality, insurance coverage, and accessing medical services can be a major concern anywhere that you go, right? And so in terms of Colombia, I have to give them a plus. I think Colombia is a good place where healthcare is quite accessible. They're quite known for their cosmetic healthcare and the tourism that comes with that. And along with that, if you just need medical care for like a broken leg, or if you're sick with something, you can get that here. You know, it's not that hard to get. And if you get a insurance plan here, then you're pretty much covered. You know what I mean? I have insurance through Sura, and I've been to the doctor a few times without having to pay anything, right? And then if you do have to pay out of pocket here, it's definitely a lot cheaper than what you would have to pay in the United States. But I still think the United States has a leg up on Colombia when it comes to the quality of healthcare. I think it's just, we have more technology, we have access to more machines, like x-ray machines, CAT scans, and those types of things are a little bit easier to get in the United States if you have insurance and you have the money. But in Colombia, one thing that is kind of negative when it comes to healthcare is they might send you from place to place to get all the tests you need, versus like in the United States, you go somewhere, they have the x-ray machine there. You don't have to go somewhere else and get an x-ray and bring it back and all that type of stuff. But overall, I have to give Colombia a plus, again, because of the cost, and there's not a large drop down when it comes to quality and healthcare here in Colombia. All right. And by the way, guys, I am in Parque Poblado here in Medellin. It's the central park of Poblado. If you're not familiar, it's actually a beautiful park, and it's a nice place to come. Lots of restaurants close by. And so the next item on the list I'm going to talk about is cost of living. The cost of living can be very significant, and expats might face a higher price of housing, groceries, and other essentials. In Colombia, that's not the case. Colombia gets a plus for cost of living for sure. It's one of the cheapest countries probably in the world to live in, next to like the Philippines and Thailand and a couple others. But yeah, Colombia is a great place when it comes to cost of living. It was a lot better a few years ago, so it has come up with the influx of expats coming here. But still, I gotta say Colombia gets a plus for cost of living. Housing in a major city like Medellin can range from, I would say, $500 for like a 2-bedroom apartment and a unit with, you know, a complete unit, all the way up to $2,000. Now, you can go over that, but I'm just saying that's the usual range that you might find, from $500 to about $2,000. And you can find furnished apartments, you can find unfurnished apartments, right? Groceries here, definitely a little bit cheaper than in the United States. There are some things that cost more, like vehicles, technology, those types of things, because they apply import taxes on those types of items, right? But the stuff that you would buy that is made here in Colombia, you're gonna be saving a little bit of money. For meat as well, and everything. So if you do buy American products like, let's say, Tide washing detergent, stuff like that, it might cost a little bit more here, because again, it's something that's imported, but they have their own brands here that make the same products here in Colombia, and those will be a lot cheaper. So again, Colombia gets a plus when it comes to cost of living for sure. That's something that you got to look at whatever country that you're going to. Again, I'm just reminding you that I'm talking about Colombia, but this list is for anybody that's interested in being an expat, okay? So the next item that we're going to cover is homesickness. Being away from family and friends can lead to feeling of loneliness and homesickness. That's for sure. That's for sure. That's kind of something on the individual level, you know, that's kind of hard to say how you're going to feel. You know, if you have less family back in the States and things like that, or wherever you're coming from, then you might not feel very homesick at all. But if you do have a big family and you're used to being around your family a lot, it is tough, man. When it comes around to Thanksgiving time, Christmas time, you're gonna want to go back and see your family. It just is what it is. But on the good thing about Colombia regarding this topic is that it's close to the United States. So if you do need to go back to the United States, you're 3 hours and you can find a direct flight. So it's not that bad. And the flights are, you know, they're not as cheap as they used to be, but they're not super expensive either. So I would say Colombia in this field gets a even, okay? It's not really good or bad. It's just kind of somewhere in the middle. All right. I would feel like a Thailand or a Japan or something like that. I would feel like the homesickness factor goes up a little bit because you're so far away from home and the people, you know, that love you and you love them. And it's very hard to get back home. You know, it takes a day or two and it can cost a lot of money. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your place in which you want to move to be an expat. All right. So the next item I'm going to cover is housing difficulties, securing sustainable housing, dealing with different rental practices, or facing substandard living conditions can be problematic, right? So I would say Colombia is a negative, yes. It's very hard if you're going to do a long-term rental contract here. A lot of the rental agencies here, they only will rent to Colombians, unfortunately. They have this insurance process in which it's like a credit check process to see if you can qualify for an apartment. And almost all gringos that are not residents here are gonna get declined for that, unfortunately. And you know, they require co-signers and things like this. And if you go outside of that process, say you look on Facebook to find housing, or you find, you know, there's a few agencies that will rent to and specialize in renting to gringos. So if you work with someone like that or agency like that, they're gonna put a little bit of tax on top of the normal rates, right? So you're gonna end up paying a little bit more. But in terms of availability, I think Colombia does have, especially Medellin, has tons of available units for you to live in if you're willing to pay the price and do what you gotta do to find a good spot, right? If you have the money, you can find a spot anywhere in Colombia. So yeah, that's my take on the housing difficulty. So the next one is the integration challenges. So building a social network and feeling accepted in the local community. This can be difficult in Colombia, man. You know, a lot of times you find out that people will act like your friend, so as long as they have something to gain from that. But as soon as it's a no gain situation for them, you know, you might start to notice less interest in being your friend. Just being honest, man. Colombians can be a little bit, you know, they have a word here called interesada. I mean, it's like gold digger, but it's like, it just means it for anybody. So they can be interested in getting something out of it from themselves. And that can make it a little bit hard to integrate in Colombia. But at the same time, there's a lot of activities. And there are a lot of Colombians that are not, you know, negative towards gringos. So I'm gonna give Colombia a even on that, you know, with a slight negative, but even, all right? I'm trying not to be too hard on Colombia. But I think it's somewhere in the middle, man, you know? Integrating in Colombia, it just depends too on what you're willing to do to kind of accept their culture and to get into their culture. You know, if you're someone that likes to do, you know, only the same stuff that you were doing back home, it's going to be a little bit harder. But if you want to go out, play soccer, meet new friends, you know, pick up a new hobby like dancing or riding motorcycles, you can meet a lot of people that way. So it really depends a lot on the person. But again, I'm gonna give Colombia an even score on that one. So let's get into the next item on the list. That's gonna be safety concerns. Different countries have varying levels of safety, and expats may be concerned about crime, political stability, and natural disasters. All right, so I gotta be real, man. You already know Colombia's getting a negative for that. Colombia is a little bit unsafe when you compare it to, you know, a lot of the other popular destinations. Let's say Japan, Panama, Costa Rica. It's probably similar to Brazil, and I would call Brazil unsafe. So, you know, Colombia is gonna get a negative for that. And you know, you look at a place like Japan where I could leave my phone right here, and somebody's gonna find me and give it back to me. So, you know, unfortunately, Colombia is always had a struggle when it comes to safety, even for its own residents. And if you're an expat, obviously you stick out like a sore thumb a lot of times, and so you can get targeted and marked and things like that. And they also have the Tinder scams where they kill or unintentionally kill people through drugging them and trying to rob them and things like that. So that's unfortunate, but that's kind of where Colombia stands. That's a strong negative when it comes to safety, all right? So if you want someone that doesn't want to worry about safety, Colombia might not be for you. All right, so the next item that I'm going to cover is financial management. So with financial management, it's really about managing your finances across different currencies, tax systems, and banking practices. right? So Colombia is gonna get a negative because their banking system is kind of thrown off, man, if I'm being honest. Yeah, you can do wire transfers and stuff like that, but it can be hard to get your bank account set up here. It can be hard to send money here, and sometimes their currency fluctuates a lot. So, you know, one day you might get 3,500 pesos for $1, and the next day you might get 5,000 pesos for $1. So you just kind of never know what their currency is gonna do. It's a very unstable currency, if you ask me. So yeah, for financial management, I gotta give them a negative. So they also have a pretty weird tax system. It's not easy to figure out, you know, if you're gonna have to pay taxes here in Colombia. But in general, if you're already paying taxes on your money when you receive it in the United States, you shouldn't be paying taxes again here in Colombia. But if you make money here, then yeah, you'll have to deal with their tax system. All right. All right, so next one, it kind of goes into one of the other topics we talked about, but it's going to be cultural insensitivity. So how sensitive are Colombians to our cultures and what, you know, and what we bring with us over here, and experiencing or witnessing cultural insensitivity or xenophobia, right, can be very disheartening, guys. So when you figure out that Colombians are starting to really hate on Americans, man, or gringos, right, that makes you not want to live in a place. So Colombia, for cultural insensitivity, has to be a negative at this point in time. It was not always that way. I've talked a lot about this in other videos, but I think their cultural sensitivity has gone down a lot because of the gentrification and things like that going on here. You know, Colombians tend to blame us for that, not blaming their own government policies and other things that are big contributing factors. It's easier for them to point the finger at the gringo and say, you guys are bringing all this money in and we're not benefiting from it. But they are not seeing all the time that a lot of Colombians are benefiting from it, you know. But in general, the rich people that own, you know, the housing and are doing Airbnbs and making more money and opening up businesses for tourists to patronize, they're not necessarily sharing that money with the rest of the poorer Colombians. So I can understand where that viewpoint comes from, but you know, it's a very complex issue, but I gotta give Colombia a negative on that one. All right, so let's let these cars pass by. I hope you guys can hear me good. The next item that I'm gonna touch on is service quality, guys. Service quality, differences in quality and reliability of services such as public transport or customer service. This can be good or bad, and it can be frustrating at times, right? Here in Colombia, I'm sorry, I have to give Colombia another negative for customer service and service quality, guys. When it comes to restaurants, when it comes to even banks, you know, the businesses that you have to do business with to get things done, they just don't care sometimes, man. I'll give you a perfect example. There is a place that I get pizza from all the time. I like to go there, eat there in person. One time I ordered from their WhatsApp, right? So I sent in an order. They have this really good brownie and ice cream dessert that they have. So I told them, okay, I want the brownie dessert, and it comes with ice cream, right? When you're at the restaurant. They said that they did not have the resources or the packaging to send the ice cream at that time. And I said, okay, that's fine, but can I, what's the price of it if I'm not gonna get the ice cream that comes with it? They said, hey, it's the same price as if you did get the ice cream. And that's where I disagree. I think if you don't possess the resources to send the ice cream, you either gotta give me 2 brownies or you gotta cut down that price. I'm not paying the same price for something when I'm not getting everything that it should come with if I'm at the restaurant. You know, that's insane. But in Colombia, it's like, to them, it's almost like mind-blowing to go and just change the price to make it a fair deal for your customer. So it's a very simple example. You know, there's other examples with banks that I've had. I don't want to get in deep into all these examples, but I just want to throw something out there where you can understand quickly that when it comes to Colombia, man, it's almost like they just don't have a sense of customer service, man. They just don't. Like they sometimes they just cannot change things, or they don't feel like it's their responsibility to make things fair, you know, in whatever situation it is. And it happens so much. If you try to send food back that's not well prepared here, they will want you to still pay for it. You know, they don't understand the concept of, I'm gonna forego a little bit of money to make my customer happy, and sometimes just to be fair. You know, they'll be unfair about it just because that's the way that, you know, the policy is set up or the pricing is set up, instead of simply just making a change, you know. And that's, to me, is just insane. It's just insane. I come from America where, you know, customer service, you know, we know across the board, you'd rather have a happy customer than make an extra dollar. You know, it just, there's so much more longevity in that. And I feel like it just doesn't exist here, man. I'm just being real. So Colombia gets a big fat negative for service quality. And the last item on my list today is adaptation time, the time it takes to get adjusted to a new country and its way of life. And that can be longer and shorter depending on where you're going, and it can lead to a lot of stress and frustration as well. So where does Colombia sit when it comes to adaptation time? I would give Colombia a positive, because you're very close to the United States, so you don't have to adapt too much. You're on the same time zone. Yes, the cultural differences take time to work through, and some of the bureaucratic issues take time to work through, but overall I would say Colombia is a positive when it comes to how easy it is to adapt. And Spanish, like I said, there's tons of language schools where you can learn Spanish, and you know, it's really on you if you're not learning Spanish. So yeah, I would say it's a positive. Versus Japan, I would say the adaptation time must be a lot longer. It has to be. I mean, you gotta learn a really different language, a whole alphabet, you know. But I would say also, I would expect Japan to have more things in English than you would see in Colombia. When you come here, everything is gonna be in Spanish. So you guys go through this list. I'll put the list in the description, and you guys can copy and paste it and make a comment and tell me, you know, if Colombia, where you would rate it, plus, minus, negative on each of those items. And if you want to talk about another country and give me all the ratings for another country, feel free to do so. It's your boy Kari.HQ. If you want to donate to your boy, to the channel, here's the PayPal right here. Just drop me a donation on there, because it's better than doing the supers on YouTube, because YouTube takes a lot of that money for themselves, as I explained to you before. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna leave you with. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something. And if you are someone that's considering doing the expat thing, you know, it's not for everybody. I'm gonna just give you the real deal off of my experience. There's been a lot of pluses and negatives with my experiences. You know, I've had ups and downs here in Colombia, so you know, it's never gonna be super easy thing to do. So just understand that you're gonna be getting into something that challenges you. It's the question I think you gotta ask is, are you up for that challenge, and do you think that the positives will outweigh that challenge? So you have to have that conversation with yourself and be honest about it, you know, because you don't want to end up in the country and have a lot of regrets. You know, do I regret moving to Colombia? I do not. I love Colombia. I love Medellin. I've had some great moments here. I met some great people here. So overall, I can't say that I regret moving to Colombia at all. But do I wish I had more information before I moved here? Of course. At the time, it wasn't as much information out there about Colombia that there is now. And I'm one of the reasons of that, you know? So I'm trying to put out this information for you guys to help you guys. So, you know, with no further ado, I'll give you a quick look around the park before we head out. Again, this is Parque Poblado in the Poblado sector. It's the heart of Poblado. Very touristic area, and the cops are rolling up to keep you safe, huh? Sometimes. Yeah, man. It's your boy Kari.𝐥𝐤𝐻Q, man. Like, comment, subscribe to this video. Show your boy some love. I'm out. Peace.